All right, I'm going to run through the workshop process. So first, there is a document on Canvas titled Workshop Guidelines. It's under Files. You should have that pulled up or pause this and go read it and read through it closely. It tells you, it goes through our core values for workshop, which is just like being respectful and generous to your peers, right? We're not like telling people they're crappy poets and we hope they die in a workshop. And I've never, ever, ever, ever had an issue with people being unkind in workshops. So I'm not worried about that. It also tells you what to do before workshop, which if you are, everybody is a writer and an editor. Everybody is an author and an editor every week in workshop because every week everybody submits a poem and everybody responds to their peers. So it tells you what to do as a writer and it tells you what to do as an editor of your peers' work. It gives you feedback guidelines. You must leave feedback on your peers' work, and the workshop guidelines document tells you how to leave feedback. It also tells us the workshop process. When I'm saying workshop, what does that even mean? That means we share our poems with each other. We sit in a circle. I have created a process that takes us through a discussion of the poem, and that is workshop. And this document tells you the steps of discussing each other's poetry. Okay, so read that document and then continue on with this video. If there are any questions remaining after watching this video and reading the document, post them in the discussion thread titled Workshop Questions, okay? So everyone is submitting poem 1. Everybody in the class is submitting their first poem Tuesday, October 3rd by midnight. All right? There is an assignment titled Poem 1, and there's a discussion thread titled Poem 1. You are submitting your poem to both of those things. The assignment is for me to see it and give you a grade. The discussion thread is so that your peers can see the poem, print it off as they are required to do. So the discussion thread gives your peers access to your poem. The Poem 1 assignment tells you specific requirements for the first poem. It's not just a free-for-all. I mean, I'm not asking you to write a sonnet that includes 17 images, but I am giving you some constraints to the poem, okay? So you need to see the Poem 1 assignment for the specific requirements. Don't just go writing a willy-nilly poem. You need to read through that first so you have an idea of what I want from it. And then you'll submit it Tuesday, October 3rd by midnight. You'll also submit it to the discussion thread Tuesday, October 3rd by midnight. You are working for workshop. We're working in small groups, and it's going to be the same small group you have been working in, though we will change that in a few weeks. So when you go to print off your peers' poems, you should, if you don't remember your group members' names, go to the small group document on Canvas that tells you who's in your group, and you're going to find their poems in the discussion thread, right? There's going to be a long line of people's names with their file attached. You're going to find your group members and print off their poems. You are only responsible for printing off your small group members' poems. Small groups in this class, I think most of y'all will have 4 members to a group. One group might just have 3 members to the group. So if you're in a group of 4, or maybe I did 4 groups of 5. I can't remember. Regardless, you find your group people, you print off their poems, you mark up their poems according to the feedback guidelines in the workshop guidelines document. All right? Feedback is due to me when you come to class Thursday to discuss workshop, right? Your peers' poems. We'll go through the workshop process, and then you will give me the feedback that you have written for your peers. You've written on their poems, you wrote them a little feedback letter on the back. You're going to give that to me. It's a part of your participation grade for that week. So every week, participation grade is 10 points, right? Tuesday, you'll get 5 points for being active and engaged in the lecture or the activities, whatever you're doing. Thursday, you'll get your 5 points from submitting your peer feedback on time and not comprehensively per se, but thoughtfully, right? According to the guidelines that I've given you for peer feedback. You're going to be in your small groups, right? When you roll into class Thursday, we'll get in our small groups and you're going to manage your own individually your small groups. You'll be like, all right, let's start with Daniel's poem. And we'll talk about this further after we take the midterm. Daniel will read his poem, and then y'all will discuss according to the workshop guidelines. And I will be just kind of buzzing around, making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, and I'm keeping time. Everybody should get about 15 minutes in your small group for workshop. Anywhere, I'd say 10 to 15 minutes per person. And I'll tell you, okay, if 7 minutes are up, if you haven't moved to step 3, you should. So if this sounds a little unclear, just hold it all in your head, and we'll discuss it Tuesday, October 3rd, after you take the midterm, okay? So that's the plan, right? We come back Tuesday. You will have studied for the midterm. You may have already started writing your poem because it's due that Tuesday night. You'll take the midterm, and then we'll go over workshop, make sure we know what's going on. That night, Tuesday by midnight, you are submitting your first poem, poem 1. So your peers, backpedal. You're submitting poem 1, and then everybody is responsible for printing off their peers' poems and marking them up for workshop on Thursday. So you will have, right, the, what's the word I'm looking for? On Wednesday, you have all day Wednesday to print off your peers' poems and leave them notes. Late submissions are not workshopped and affect your participation grade. So if you don't submit your poem 1 until Thursday or Wednesday at 1 a.m., it's not getting workshopped. It doesn't give anybody enough time to read it closely. It's not fair to your peers for them required to offer feedback on a poem that came in late. So you'll receive, your participation grade will be affected, and of course the poem's grade will be affected. So late poems are not workshopped, and the grade is, that lateness is reflected in your participation and assignment grades. Okay? So hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Again, we will review this on Tuesday after the midterm. We should have at least 20 minutes to talk about this. All right.